When it's time for scheduled maintenance on your truck, what items do you really need and what can you do yourself? We'll answer those questions and make you a more informed consumer today on TruckU.
Hey, welcome to TruckU. So we're doing a little road test today for a customer of ours.
Yeah, today we want to take a look at some regularly scheduled maintenance and really the reservations that people have for it, because a lot of times you don't feel like there's anything wrong with your vehicle, but you take it in anyway for the regularly scheduled maintenance and you don't know how much you're going to spend and you're thinking, man, it's running fine. I don't really want to spend all this money and maybe open up Pandora's box.
Well, the thing is, you know, the whole old adage is pay me a little bit now or pay me a lot later. I'd rather pay a little bit up front, make sure I can avoid problems, because, you know, stuff doesn't happen when you want it to. Broke down on the side of the road
Right.
on a family road trip or out in bad weather. I mean, whatever it might be, I'd rather prevent it than be stuck in the middle of it.
So the idea is basically to do some of that regularly scheduled high mileage maintenance, maybe do it by yourself and save a lot of money in the process. The first thing we need to do is get it back to the shop and hook it up to the diagnostic, to the scan tool, because that's what they're going to do anywhere you go. You're going to park it in there, they're going to hook it up and see if any codes come up. That's going to be the first indicator if anything's wrong. And then we can look at it a little bit more in depth beyond that. What do you think?
All right, I'm down.
Good? So we get the truck into the shop and we hook it up to the diagnostic tool. What we're using today is the diagnostic from Auto Ingenuity, and this is cool for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it gives us professional level diagnostic capabilities at a fraction of the price. Secondly, it kind of grows with us as we change vehicles, right? Because we have the hardware in there. So we got a Ford now, let's say we sell that and we get a Chevy. All we have to do is upgrade the software to all the Chevy information. We don't have to get a new system. We just stay with this one and upgrade it via email. It's nice and easy. So this plugs into the OBD2, run the cord to your computer, and you are in the diagnostics business.
Yeah, this one piece of hardware works for 44 different car manufacturers, going from 96 to 2011. And when you start with the older vehicles, you might not get as many scan tools or as many sensors. Like this one's rating 492 with a 2000. You get into like a 2012 BMW, I mean, it grows exponentially.
Mushrooms.
Basically, it doesn't become practical to work on a vehicle unless you have a sophisticated tool like
Right.
this. Now, some people say, well, for a few bucks, I can buy a generic scan tool. Well, what you're going to get is basically what you see here,
Right there at the
no
top.
diagnostic codes retrieved. That's what you'll get at that generic level. But when you want a real tool, what this will show you is, boom, you've got a bunch of things going on here that those type of toys can't really, you know, read. They won't give you this level. So right now we're seeing a speed wheel sensor issue.
You're saying this truck threw up some codes? Surely.
Shockingly enough. And there's a bunch of other stuff. When you start to get to emissions thing is where this thing really kind of takes over, and you see the difference between a basic level and something at the factory level. So we got to start up the vehicle, because with emissions, it won't show issues until it's running, until these sensors heat up. So we're going to go into our O2 sensors. We'll let it warm up for about 60 seconds or so to get this thing going. Like right now, we're seeing live data as the vehicle runs. This is one of the O2 sensors. You see it's functioning. It's adjusting as we go back and forth. You scan through all the different O2 sensors. Now you look down here and boom, we've got a problem. We've got one that's reading absolutely dead, so we know we've got an O2 sensor failure. With a generic scan tool, you wouldn't have got any of this.
I think that's one of the important things, is the fact that you can delve so much deeper into the particular vehicles and, like you said, pick up stuff that a generic scan tool would just totally glaze over and miss.
Right, so now you can go into the dealership if you're the do-it-yourself, and you can say, okay, I've got an O2 sensor that's bad, I got a speed wheel sensor that's bad. You can print out a document telling you, then going to, here we go, I need a fix.
It's all about being a more informed consumer, and the other advantage to this is now you can figure out what's wrong with your vehicle, right? And you can make the decision. Is this something I want to tackle, or do I want to take it into the professionals and get them done?
Or if you're a guy in the shop level, you can buy a factory piece of equipment, a factory tool, give you all the coverage you would need, and do so at a fraction of the cost. So that makes your ROI a little bit better, because you're spending less money and getting the same results.
Like we said, get the professional level diagnostic capabilities from the guys at Auto Ingenuity. It's the way to go.
Now we've got, we see some of the issues here. We can start attacking them.
Yep.
O2 sensor. If I say first we hit the ABS and fix that wheel sensor.
Sounds good to me.
All right, cool.
And the truck's got some pretty high mileage on it, and there's a few scratches and dings here and there. But overall, for a 2000, this is a great looking truck. And with some periodic maintenance on it, a little regular maintenance, we can keep it on the road for a long time. Real quick, Bruno, I once knew a dude who had a 1996 Ford Ranger that had almost 300,000 miles on it. Just regular performance and regular maintenance on it. Man, that thing is still looking good, allegedly, from what I hear.
You need to let that go.
It's always going to be right here in my heart.
Moving on. At 50,000 miles, you want to check your brakes. At 100,000 miles, you want to check them again.
Right.
And for good reason, because if you look at this, while it looks like a pretty good truck, dig a little deeper, and this thing's got no brake pads left. So what looks like a good-looking truck could be a good-looking truck smashing into the truck in front of them.
That's a very good point.
So at this point, you look at these pads, you just want to throw them out and get new ones. It's easy to tell when the pads are wore out. When you look at the rotors, though, it gets a little bit harder to tell without the proper tools.
Now, we take a look at this, and you can feel it. And there's some grooves in here, and it's not too bad, though. We've seen a lot worse. This kind of feels like a record. And by record, I mean one of those black round things that plays music. Some of you older guys know what I'm talking about, if you're our age or older. But what do you think?
Getting back to the rotors.
What?
Now, what it is, every one of them, every vehicle's got a tolerance you want to stay within. You can't go any thinner than. This one is 97 thousandths, and we're pretty close to that right now. So what happens is when you do a brake job, you need to cut the rotors so you have a nice, clean, flat surface for the new pads to grab to. At this point, these are too close to that tolerance, so you cut away the material, it goes below it, and these could warp, and that's not a good thing. The other thing is new rotors these days are cheap. It's so much easier to go down to a place like we did, Federated Auto Parts, get a new set of asbestos brake pads, rotors, the whole kit, and they're a little more advanced. They've got these little slots here to let gases dissipate. They're going to give you a better braking capability than the stock ones, and you can change them out pretty cheaply and do it all yourself.
Yeah, he's going to be able to get another 50,000 miles on these brakes. I think when you mentioned checking them at 50 and 100, he might have missed the 50. Judging by the pads. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll get this taken care of. We need to go to break right now. And when we come back, it's time for some more maintenance to keep this baby on the road. I like it. Look at that. It is completely almost gone. Got his money's worth, though.
Yeah, that he did. Got that? Ha! Hey, welcome back. We're continuing on with our 100,000 mile maintenance. At this level, you want to go above and beyond just a simple brake job. So we got this thing in the air. One thing I always like to check is the CV boots. Now, it's easy to tell if you've got a problem because these commonly get torn. And what happens is the grease comes out. When the grease comes out, those ball joints start rotting themselves out. They'll wear into each other. Before you know it, you're going to buy yourself a new set of axles. So if you catch it early enough, you can save a bunch of money. They've got repair kits that simply clamp over. You can fix it in a few minutes, cost a few bucks, save a lot of time and a lot of money. Fortunately, on this thing, it looks pretty good. There's no tears, there's no grease sticking out, so we can kind of move on.
These tie rod ends right here are another thing that can wear out over time, and they're part of the regularly scheduled maintenance, and they're all part of the steering components. We've done a lot of shows in the past where when one thing fails in the steering, it can cause other problems on down the line, and next thing you know, you got a big old mess. So whenever you find any problems, you want to go ahead and address them. Now's a great time to do it. Let's take a look at this, and we'll sneak in here, and one thing we noticed is there's a little bit of play. You see that? All right. Some people might look at that and go, oh, it doesn't look like too much, right? But that's a big problem if you don't address it. And what better time than now? The cool thing is we pop these out, we get these in. We're into these new ones for about 35 bucks a piece, right around that. So minus, well, you're going to save whatever the labor cost would be to do this too. So not a bad deal.
Keep in mind, you're going to have this thing aligned one way or the other, whether you do the job or you have a shop do it. So that's an additional thing you have to account for. But like Matt said, it's like pay a little now or pay a lot later. And since we got this thing apart, it's a good time to do it now.
Sure. Now, Bruno was talking about the boots on the CV joints and how those can get ripped or dried out or compromised and stuff can get in there. The same thing can happen on these tie rod ends right here over time. You take a look up close, you see these are a little bit brittle, dried out, got some cracks, and what happens is you get dirt and sand and debris inside of those things, and you've got the joint rolling, the ball joint rolling around like that. By the time you get sand and dirt in there, it starts to board out a little bit, and that's where your play comes from. Now that's going to negatively affect all of your steering. Eventually that can cause some premature wear on your tires because they're dancing around a little bit like that. It's all bad. Fortunately, it's easy to fix, and that's what we're going to do with these new joints that we've got right here, or the new tie rod ends. So these are actually, they're nice and tight, they're brand new, they're greasable so we can service these things and make them last a little bit longer. All is good, but what we have to do is get these put back together as close to the factory specs as as possible. Then we can get it off to the alignment shop. So what we did was we come over here to this old one and we take a little measurement. What we like to do is kind of measure from the middle of this nub right here, run it right up to that nut, and that is 3.8 inches on the upper and 4.2 on the lower side. And what we want to do is get that back together as close to factory as possible. Then we can run it up to the shop and make sure everything's dialed in.
There's one last thing we want to address while we're up underneath here, and that is a wheel speed sensor that we think has gone bad. So I'm going to take this rotor out of the way so I can show you guys what we're talking about. Now, if you remember when we first started, we pulled in our diagnostic tool and it told us we had a bad wheel speed sensor. The problem with that is when the wheel speed sensor doesn't work, well, your ABS doesn't work because it's tracking how fast that wheel is going. It doesn't know how fast it's going, doesn't know if it should apply the brakes or not. This thing is pretty easy to get out of the way. Pull out an Allen head wrench, you can pop it out, you make a disconnection for the wiring harness up in here, replace it with a new one. It's just that simple. Just look here. Well, it's normally that simple. This one looks like this seems to be the problem is that it's loaded up with grease, so it could actually be a good sensor, but the grease is keeping it from getting the proper signal. That means we've got an underlying problem, so now we're going to have to chase some parts, but typically these are pretty easy to find. Now this is a unit bearing issue because there's a one piece that's not serviceable, so you have to replace it with a new one. There's a seal in here which is allowing the grease to get on the sensor and keep it from working. So what we're going to do is we'll take out this cotter pin here, take off this jam nut, and then there's just 3 bolts all the way around that hold this in place. The good thing, it's easy to take off. If we can find the right parts, we can slap this thing back together, and we'll be good to go. This will all come off in one chunk. Now, with the new unit bearing, a lot of times you'll get a new wheel speed sensor, but even if you don't, you just hit this thing with some brake parts cleaner, and I'm pretty certain that it's going to go back to functioning properly. So we'll get this out of the way. When we take a break, we can come back. We're going to take a look at some other sensors that gave us a bit of an issue. We just need to track down the new part.
Welcome back to TruckU. So the first thing we did when we got the truck into the shop today was hook it up to the diagnostic tool. And what we noticed right away was we had a failure with an O2 sensor on the downstream. Fortunately, that's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal to swap it out.
Yeah, a truck like this has got 4 O2 sensors, 2 of them in front of the cats and 2 on the back side. Now, what an O2 sensor does, it measures air-fuel mixture. So on either side of the engine, you've got one telling it, well, it's a little lean, it's a little rich, and it makes the adjustments as you drive to make sure your EFI system's running right, your engine's running efficiently. Now, on the back side, you've got the 2 O2 sensors. Basically, they're like a read-only thing. They're not really giving feedback to the engine to adjust the fuel ratio. What they're doing is making sure the catalytic converters are operating properly, and that's where we've got our issues, the one on the back right side here.
Now, when you're swapping this out, keep in mind the exhaust is the hottest part of the whole deal right here, and that O2 sensor is screwed in. So over time, that can get in there pretty good. I mean, almost like it's baked in, right? You want to be careful when you're yanking it out, because if you just put a wrench on it and you round that thing in, now it's a permanent piece of the exhaust,
right,
and that's bad. So you want to use the right tool like this, and that'll help you get it out correctly.
Now, you can get this at any auto parts store, and what it's going to do is it's got a little slot right here so it doesn't damage the wires, and it's going to grab that properly. So we'll put this on, like Matt said, and it's an easy swap out. You know, the part's going to cost you somewhere just under 50 bucks, and you know, if you take it to a part or a dealership to do the work for a repair shop, they're going to have to charge you the labor for it too, which anyway you look at, it's about $100 worth of savings to do it yourself. Now, what the situation with this sensor, I believe, is going to be is that it's got to be shot, whether it's fried or we've broken a wire or something catastrophically wrong with it, because when you look at it on the diagnostic sensor on that tool, you'll see you've got voltage spiking up and down on a properly operating O2 sensor. And the newer, the better it's working, the faster those spikes, the faster it can read back and forth and give data back to the engine. This one was absolutely dead, no voltage, so it is junk. All we got to do is get it out of the way, we can get the new one in place, and our sensors are fixed.
New brake pads, check. New rotors, check. The brakes are almost done. Next thing we need to do is bleed the lines. That tedious job just got a lot easier because of our little buddy here. It's the power bleeder from Motive Products. Now, we've used this quite a few times in the past, and it really helps us save a lot of time and a lot of money as well.
And a few relationships along the way, because usually when you're bleeding the brakes, you've got your girlfriend or your buddy or your wife in the driver's seat, and it's pump, pump, hold, pump, pump, hold as you're cracking the bleeder, trying to get rid of all the air in the lines to get the new fluid in. It doesn't end well, but now with this thing, you can do it all by yourself. You know, a lot of people neglect their brake fluid.
Right.
You know, know, it's probably been in this vehicle for 100,000 miles. It's been subjected to a lot of heat. It's been aerated. It's been broken down. So we spent the time and the energy putting all new brakes in this thing. We're going to go ahead in a few minutes with this, put all new fluid in it as well. So this time you hit the pedal the first time, you've got a solid brake pedal.
Look, the whole theme of the day is trying to save a couple bucks here and there or wherever we can, right? Well, listen, if you take this into a place to get the lines bled, it could cost you 80 bucks, 100 bucks, 120 bucks. For a lot less than that, you can get the power bleeder from Motive Products, and now you can do it at any time, and you don't have to neglect that brake fluid anymore.
You know, it's nice because it comes with different adapters. All you do is you hook it up to the top of your master cylinder. We already got brake fluid in here, and then you pressurize the unit. Now, it's got a gauge on here, which keeps you from over-pressurizing and damaging your master cylinder. So all you do is you crank it up to about 15 pounds, you lock it down in place, and then I'll go in back, and you simply crack the bleeder. You'll watch the old stuff flush out, the new stuff flush in, and when you've got the color change, and it's come a nice continuous stream, you lock it down, you go to the next one. It's that easy.
This is one of those things that pays for itself the first time you use it.
Yeah. You got pressure yet, Matt?
I'm getting there, buddy.
All right. So we've got our little catch can hooked up to the back of the bleeder here with a little 3/8 wrench. So once Matt gets pressure inside the reservoir, all we'll do is we'll crack the bleeder open, and you'll see the old stuff come out into the catch can, and then you'll finally see the new stuff coming in. When the new stuff comes in, all we do is lock the bleeder back up, and we are done.
And the good news is our relationship is just as strong as it's ever been.
Let's go inside the Duplicolor garage. Duplicolor, yes you can, in your garage.
Let's say you want to dress up your engine compartment a little bit, maybe paint some accent pieces here or there and make it look really cool. Well, when you're doing that, you want to make sure that you use the right kind of paint. That's where this comes in. It's VHT. It stands for very high temperature. Now, up to this point, you didn't have a lot of options as far as the finish went. You could go with a flat or a gloss finish. Well, now you've got these metallic finishes that are available. So you've got all these colors right here, and the new kid on the block is this matte metallic black. The best thing about it is it's really easy to do, and it's something that you can do by yourself. So keep in mind the engine metallic is a full coverage paint, so it didn't matter that we scuffed the chrome. That actually gives us a good surface to stick to. If this was a see-through or translucent paint, we would never want to scuff that chrome. First thing we want to do is hit it with a light coat, get it nice and tacky. Then you can follow it up with a couple medium coats after that until you get the finish that you want. Now keep in mind, anytime you're doing any kind of painting project, you want to do it in a well-ventilated area. This particular coating is rated up to 650 degrees, but you have to let it cure, and there's two different ways you can do that. One, you can take this piece, put it in the oven, and bake it for an hour at 200 degrees while you're baking cookies and wearing that cool apron. Or two, you go ahead and let this dry, bolt it back into the vehicle, and let the heat from the engine actually cure the coating. I kind of prefer that option right there. It's VHT, very high temperature, for all of your high temperature applications. For more information about the whole line of the VHT family of products, check out their website. So here's the scenario. You're redoing a classic Chevy truck, and you're thinking, where in the world am I going to get all of these pieces and parts that I need, right? Well, look no further than this. It's the classic parts catalogs for Chevy trucks from the guys at Classic Parts of America.
Now, they've been around for 29 years, so it's not some fly-by-night company that you're going to be ordering your parts from. And they've got catalogs covering trucks from 1947 all the way up to 1998. There's 6 different catalogs, and they're great because, first of all, they're free. Nice. Second of all, inside, if you look, you've got great pictures of all the things you're looking for. Now, you might not know what it's called, but you can match up the picture here and say, okay, I need that battery gauge. Here's the part number. Here's what's going to cost. The great thing about it is not only can you use the catalogs, you can buy online, and you're going to get the parts between 1 to 3 days because they're located in the Midwest, and that makes life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, these are the guys that are going to help you take something like this and replace it with something brand new like this. It's the Classic Parts catalogs for Chevy trucks from Classic Parts of America. Here's another product designed to save you time and effort in the garage. It's the Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath from Workshop Hero.
The best thing about it, it's really easy to use. You take an old drum that's rusted out like this, you set it in the Metal Rescue. All you have to do is check it to make sure it's clean and you let it dry. It's that easy. Now, cleaning a part like this with conventional means, whether you're grinding or sanding, can take you hours, and quite honestly, it's almost not worth it because you'll never get the rust out of these hard-to-get areas. With the Metal Rescue, it does the work for you, and that's what they call it, the Workshop Hero.
You know the deal. You can tell your wife, hey, honey, I'm going to be out in the garage taking that rust off. I could be out there all day. Don't check on me. Everything's fine. With this way, you put it in there, you let it soak. Secret's safe with us. It's the Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath from Workshop Hero. It'll be our little secret, and she'll never know. Hey, we need to go to break right now. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some more ways you could save money by doing some of the repairs yourself.
For more information about anything you've seen on today's show, check out speed.com or visit our website at truckutv.com.
Welcome back to TruckU. So today we're looking at what could be inexpensive fixes to expensive problems, right? You think about expensive problems, the AC comes to mind. Well, that's where the heater treater steps in, because that's going to help us out with some common AC problems and save a ton of money in the process.
Yeah, we've worked with the guys at Heater Treater before because they give you a do-it-yourself way of fixing a reoccurring problem and doing it the right way. It's a permanent fix. Now, the big problem with a lot of the HVAC systems is you've got a problem with the blend door, is what they call it. And it's a failure because you've got a plastic part with a plastic hinge that's controlling the HVAC system. So you've got a very strong little electric motor that's opening this door back and forth, cycling over time. What happens is this little hinge breaks. When that happens, you lose full effect of your HVAC system. So what you can do with the guys at Heater Treater is replace that door with one that is going to last. This one is a steel door. It's a two-part assembly with a steel hinge. So with the steel hinge and the two-part assembly, you're able to make this repair in the vehicle without taking out the HVAC system. What you'll do is go through the glove box. You'll make a little window right here, pull out the old part, and put in the new. It's just that simple, and it is, like I said, a permanent fix to a reoccurring problem.
Hey, the good news is if you're a little bit confident in your mechanical abilities, you can most likely pull this off. But even if you can't and you take it to a pro to fix it like this, you'll still save a ton of money in the process on your AC problem. Now, this particular door, this is another unique issue because this door is from the Jeep Cherokee or the Wrangler, and they're really the only ones that have this issue. It's a real flimsy plastic door that they've got right here, right? So the breakage doesn't happen here. What happens with this door is, as it cycles open and close over time, it becomes even weaker and it gets flimsier. Then it doesn't seal up, it doesn't close or open properly. So your calibration gets all mixed up because the little motor thinks it's turned all the way up, but the door isn't sealing properly, and now your AC system is all whacked out. The Heater Treater steps in, gives you a permanent fix with a solid door, and it solves that problem. The Heater Treater could be your new best friend as far as AC problems goes. You know?
Hey, we got to get going on those wheels.
All right. So by check out these wheels, you mean put them back on, right?
I mean, you lift them, I'll torque them down, and we can get this
Right.
truck out of here. You know, think about it. We
Right.
did a lot of work on this thing today, and after all the work, I think this guy's going to get at least another 100,000 miles out of it.
I think we should crunch some numbers right now because we really saved this guy a ton of money in here today, and this is exciting. I mean, think about everything that we saved.
I'm a step ahead of you. I've been crunching this whole time, and where I'm at right now, I think we're about $18,000 we saved this guy. Oh, I know. It's crazy, right?
$18,000.
Trust me, the math works. I ran it twice.
$18,000.
I'll get that torque wrench.
Wait a minute. 18. Hold on. 18.